Chosen one, listen closely. They've been whispering about your face for weeks now. Not your resume, not your name, your face. That flat, unreadable, "Is anybody even in there" expression you wear when the room gets tense. The one that makes people relax around you, makes them think it's safe to say what they really mean, makes them assume you're 3 steps behind instead of 3 moves ahead. It was never safe, it was never true. Behind that dumb face, you had already finished the conversation before they started it. You've felt the tone before, haven't you? The slight pause before someone explains something twice, slower, like you needed the simple version. The look that flickers across a stranger's face and says without a single word, "This one's not that sharp." The way people talk over you in rooms, because your expression gave them nothing to push against, nothing to react to, nothing that told them you were already 3 sentences ahead of where they were standing. That's the whisper. That's the joke passed around behind your back. That you're slow, that you're simple, that your face gives away exactly how little is going on upstairs. Here's what they got catastrophically wrong. A blank face isn't an empty one. A quiet room isn't an unoccupied one. And a person who doesn't perform their intelligence for an audience isn't the same as a person who doesn't have any. You learned a long time ago that the moment your face showed what you were really thinking, people started guarding themselves. So you let it go slack. You let it go easy, almost sleepy, almost harmless. And you watched what people do when they think nobody's keeping score. They talked. They always talk. And every word they said in front of your face went straight into a file they never knew you were keeping. Now the whispers have changed shape. They're not about how simple you look anymore. They're about how you always seem to know. Before we go one sentence further, hit that like button and subscribe. Not as a favor, as a signal. A way of passing this message on to whoever needs to hear it next. Because what's about to unfold isn't a compliment, it's a confession, theirs. And if you feel that recognition creeping up your spine right now, drop a 77 in the comments so I know exactly who's still here for what comes next. Let's get into it, chosen one truth at a time. Because here's what's actually happening while they whisper about your face like it's some kind of open secret. Every single one of those whispers is a confession dressed up as gossip. Each one admits, without meaning to, that something about you doesn't add up the way it's supposed to, that the label they slapped on you a long time ago keeps slipping every time you open your mouth, or solve a problem, or answer a question nobody expected you to catch. That gap between the label and the reality, that's where this entire story lives. Number 1, the whisper that started with your face. It didn't start with something you said. It started with something you didn't. Somewhere along the way, a room full of people looked at your loose jaw, your slow blink, your unreadable stillness, and decided that's what a slow mind looks like on the outside. Nobody voted on it. Nobody tested it. They just agreed on it the way people agree on things that are convenient to believe. A face that doesn't perform confusion is easier to underestimate than a face that does, and yours never performed anything. It just existed, calm, loose, unbothered. And calm, to people who don't understand it, looks a lot like empty. So the whisper started small. A comment here, a smirk there, someone leaning toward someone else and saying, without saying it directly, "I don't think they're following this." You heard it. You always heard it. You just never gave them the reaction they were fishing for, and that non-reaction became its own kind of evidence in their minds. See, they weren't reading your intelligence, they were reading your face, and your face was never built to broadcast what was actually happening underneath it. Here's the part that should chill them if they ever found out. While they were deciding you were 3 steps behind, you were already watching the whole board. You clocked who deferred to who. You noticed who flinched when certain names came up. You caught the exact second someone's story changed mid-sentence. None of it showed on your face because none of it needed to. A predator that announces itself doesn't survive very long, and neither does a mind that broadcasts every move it's making. Imagine a poker table, where one player keeps a face so unreadable that the rest of the table starts making decisions based on nothing but assumption. They're not folding because they know something. They're folding because your stillness unsettles them more than aggression ever could. That's the table you've been sitting at your entire life. Except most of the time, you weren't even trying to bluff. You were just being yourself, and being yourself was already enough to make the room second-guess its own read. The whisper about your face was never really about your face. It was about their discomfort with not being able to categorize you on sight. People like quick labels. They like knowing within 5 seconds whether someone is a threat, an ally, or background noise. Your face refused to cooperate with any of those categories, so they picked the laziest one available: dumb, harmless, slow, because that label let them stop thinking about you. And that, chosen one, was their first mistake. Because the moment they stopped thinking about you is the exact moment you started seeing everything. And here's the part they'll never fully grasp, even now. Being underestimated wasn't a wound you had to recover from. It was a vantage point you learned to use. Every room that wrote you off handed you a front row seat to its own operations, unguarded, unfiltered, completely unaware it was being watched. You didn't ask for that seat. They gave it to you the moment they decided your face wasn't worth a second look. That's the part worth remembering every time the whispers start up again in a new room, with new people, wearing the same tired assumption. It isn't a threat. It's an invitation, handed to you by people too distracted by their own certainty to realize what they're actually doing. Let them keep handing it over. You already know exactly what to do with it. Number 2, why they called it slow when it was never slow. There's a specific kind of person who confuses stillness with delay. They talk fast, they react fast, they fill silence like silence is an emergency that needs an ambulance. And when they meet someone who doesn't rush to respond, someone who lets a beat pass before answering, someone who chews on a question instead of spitting out the first thing that comes to mind, they assume the gears are grinding slowly. What they never consider is that some minds don't need to rush because they already arrived. You've watched people mistake your pause for confusion more times than you can count. "Did you get that?" they'd ask, leaning in, voice a little louder, a little slower, like volume fixes comprehension. And you'd nod, or you'd answer with something so precise it should have ended the conversation right there. Sometimes it did. Sometimes they just moved on, uneasy, unable to reconcile the gap between what they expected and what they got. Here's the truth about processing speed that almost nobody talks about. Fast isn't the same as accurate. A person who blurts out an answer in half a second and a person who takes 3 seconds to say the exact right thing are not running the same race. One is performing responsiveness. The other is actually thinking. You've always belonged to the second category, and the world has spent years mistaking your patience for a deficit instead of what it actually is: precision that refuses to be rushed into being wrong. Think of it like this. Imagine 2 archers standing at the same line. One fires arrow after arrow as fast as their arms will move, missing the target more often than not. But the noise of the bowstring makes them look busy, look skilled, look dangerous. The other archer waits, breathes, adjusts, releases a single arrow that lands dead center. Which one would you actually fear if you were standing downrange? Speed impresses a crowd. Accuracy ends the argument. They called you slow because slow was the only explanation that let them keep their self-image intact. If you weren't slow, then they had spent years underestimating someone sharper than them, and that's a harder pill to swallow than "they're just not that quick." So they chose the comfortable lie. And every time you proved them wrong with a single sentence, a single move, a single answer that landed exactly where it needed to, that lie got a little harder to maintain. It's still standing right now, barely, propped up by nothing but their refusal to admit they read you wrong from day one. Somewhere in the back of their mind, a quieter thought has already started forming, one they haven't said out loud yet, because saying it means admitting something uncomfortable. What if slow was never the word? What if the word they were actually looking for the entire time was careful, and careful was simply too generous a word to hand to someone they'd already decided to dismiss? You've noticed it in the small tells since, the way certain people now wait a half-second longer before finishing a sentence around you, checking your face for a reaction they no longer trust themselves to predict. That hesitation is new. It wasn't there before, and it isn't going away now that it's shown up. Number 3. The room that laughed first and paid for it. You remember the room. Everyone does, eventually, because there's always one. The specific place where the joke about you got said out loud instead of just implied. Maybe it was dressed up as a compliment with teeth. Maybe it was a nickname that stuck a little too well. Maybe it was just a laugh at the exact moment you spoke, quick and reflexive, like your voice arriving was itself the punchline. You didn't storm out. You didn't correct them. You let it happen, and you filed it away with everything else. Here's what that room never understood about laughing first. Laughter that comes before understanding is just noise wearing confidence as a costume. They weren't laughing because they'd assessed you and found you lacking. They were laughing because laughing was easier than looking closer. And looking closer at you would have meant admitting they didn't actually know what they were dealing with. So instead of curiosity, they chose comedy. Instead of asking a real question, they made you the answer to a joke nobody had actually thought through. And you let them keep thinking that. Because chosen one, here's the thing about being underestimated in a room full of people who laugh first. It hands you a kind of invisibility that sharp people would kill for. Nobody watches their words around the person they've already dismissed. Nobody double-checks their story in front of someone they think can't follow it. That room, the one that laughed, became the exact place where the most information leaked out unguarded, because they had convinced themselves you weren't capable of catching it. Imagine a magician's assistant standing off to the side of the stage, seemingly just decoration, seemingly just there to hand over props and smile. The audience never watches the assistant, they watch the magician's hands. But the assistant sees everything: the trapdoor, the hidden wire, the exact moment the trick actually happens. That was you in that room. Not the punchline, the one person actually watching how the trick worked, while everyone else was busy laughing at the show. Eventually, rooms like that get quiet. Not because you demanded silence, but because something you said, some detail you produced, some answer that came out of nowhere and landed with surgical precision, made the laughter curdle into confusion. That's the moment the room remembers. That's the moment nobody talks about afterward, because admitting it means admitting they built an entire joke on a foundation that never existed. They laughed first, and chosen one, they are still quietly paying the interest on that laugh. Some of them have started avoiding that memory altogether, changing the subject fast whenever it gets close, because bringing it up now means bringing up exactly how confidently they got it wrong in front of a room that still remembers. A laugh you can't take back is one of the few debts that never quietly disappears. And you've never once needed to remind them of it. That's the part that seems to unsettle them most, actually. They keep waiting for the moment you bring it up, the moment you finally get to say, "Remember when you laughed?" And that moment never comes, because you were never interested in collecting on that particular debt. You just let it sit there, unpaid, quietly accruing on its own. Number 4. What your blank stare actually sees. People assume a blank stare means nothing is happening behind it, the same way they assume a still lake has no current underneath. But you already know the truth, and it's time the rest of them caught up to it too. That stare, the one that makes people shift in their seats and start talking a little faster, isn't blank at all. It's recording. It's cross-referencing. It's comparing what someone is saying right now to what they said last week, and noticing, quietly, that the two versions don't match. While your face holds perfectly still, your mind is doing the opposite of nothing. You're tracking who avoids eye contact when a certain topic comes up. You're noticing the half-second delay before someone answers a question they should have answered instantly if it were actually true. You're cataloging the tiny inconsistencies that most people miss, because most people are too busy performing their own reactions to actually watch anyone else's. Your stillness isn't absence, it's bandwidth. All the energy other people spend on visible reactions, you spend on observation instead. Imagine a security camera mounted in the corner of a store, unmoving, unblinking, seemingly just part of the ceiling that nobody thinks twice about. Nobody performs for the camera because nobody's thinking about the camera. And that's exactly the point. The camera doesn't need to move to see everything. It just needs to keep watching while everyone else assumes it isn't. Your blank stare has been doing exactly that your entire life, quietly gathering footage that people would be a lot more careful around if they knew it existed. You might wonder why this feels lonely sometimes, why seeing this much means you can rarely just relax into a conversation the way other people seem to. It's because once you notice the gap between what someone says and what's actually true, you can't unnotice it. You can't unhear the hesitation. You can't unsee the flinch. That's the cost of a stare that actually sees instead of just looking. But chosen one, that cost bought you something they'll never have. The ability to know exactly who you're dealing with long before they ever show their hand on purpose. That's the trade nobody warns you about when they call this a gift. Every extra layer of perception comes with an extra layer of weight, and you've carried both for so long that most people never even notice you're holding anything at all. That, chosen one, is exactly how you've always preferred it. There's a specific kind of quiet confidence that comes from knowing you don't need to explain the weight you're carrying to anyone who never asked in good faith. You've made peace with that trade a long time ago. The people worth explaining it to tend to figure it out on their own anyway, without you ever needing to say a word. Number 5, the day they realized the joke was on them. Every story like this has a hinge point, a single day where the whole narrative flips, and nobody can pretend it didn't happen. Yours came quietly, the way most real shifts do. No dramatic reveal, no speech, no moment where you stood up and announced anything, just one sentence, delivered exactly on time, that answered a question nobody expected you to be able to answer, solved a problem nobody thought you'd even noticed, or exposed a detail nobody realized you'd been tracking the entire time. Picture the room in that instant. The easy confidence on their faces cracking just slightly. The pause that runs a beat too long. The quick glance passed between two people who suddenly aren't sure what you actually know. That's the sound of a joke dying mid-laugh. They had spent so long treating you like background furniture that they never prepared for the possibility that the furniture had been listening, calculating, and quietly compiling a case the entire time. Here's what makes that day sting so much in hindsight for them. It wasn't one lucky guess. It wasn't a fluke. It was the first visible proof of something that had been true the whole time. And the moment it became visible, every previous joke, every condescending comment, every slow, loud explanation suddenly needed re-examining. Imagine building an entire house on ground you were told was solid, only to discover on move-in day that the foundation was never where you thought it was. That's what that single sentence did to their version of you. It didn't just correct one moment, It retroactively cracked every moment that came before it. You didn't gloat. That's the part they still can't fully process. A person who had been underestimated for that long would have every right to make a show of it, to milk the reversal, to remind them slowly and deliberately of every dumb comment they'd made. You didn't. You just kept moving, kept working, kept being exactly who you'd been the whole time, which somehow unsettled them even more than if you'd rubbed it in their faces. Because a quiet correction doesn't just prove them wrong, it proves you were never performing for their approval in the first place. And that's the kind of confidence they can't argue with, no matter how hard they try. You could see it settle over the room afterward, that specific mix of respect and discomfort people get when they realize the story they'd been telling about you was never the real one. Nobody clapped. Nobody needed to. The correction had already done its work the second it left your mouth. Some people spend years chasing that exact reaction, engineering moments to prove themselves, performing competence at every opportunity, hoping someone finally notices. You never had to chase it. It arrived on its own, in its own time, precisely because you never rushed it into existence. Number 6. Why smart people keep falling for the same mistake. You'd think the sharpest people in any room would be the hardest to fool, and yet they're often the easiest, because their intelligence makes them trust their first read a little too much. They pride themselves on being able to size someone up quickly, and once that quick read is locked in, questioning it feels like questioning their own competence. So instead of updating the read when new evidence shows up, they bend the evidence to fit the read they already made. That's not stupidity. That's ego wearing intelligence as a disguise. You've watched this happen over and over. Someone sharp meets you, decides within 30 seconds what category you belong in, and then spends the rest of the relationship interpreting everything you do through that first snap judgment. When you say something insightful, they call it a lucky guess. When you solve something they couldn't, they call it luck again, or help from someone else, or anything except a recalibration of who they actually decided you were. Smart people can be remarkably committed to staying wrong once being wrong becomes comfortable. Here's the mechanism underneath it, the part that explains why this keeps happening to you specifically. Intelligence that announces itself is easy to respect because it fits the pattern people expect. The fast talker, the confident interrupter, the person who needs the room to know how smart they are within the first 5 minutes. Your intelligence doesn't announce anything. It doesn't need an audience to confirm it's real. And a mind used to reading confidence as a signal for competence simply doesn't know what to do with someone who has the competence but skips the performance entirely. Imagine walking into an art gallery expecting every masterpiece to be lit with a spotlight and a velvet rope, and then walking straight past the real one because it's hanging quietly in a hallway with no plaque, no light, nothing announcing its value. That's what happens every time someone sharp walks past you, assuming there's nothing worth stopping for. They're not stupid for missing it. They're just trained to look for the wrong signals. And chosen one, every single time they make that mistake, you get to keep operating exactly the way you always have, unbothered, unspotlighted, and completely unstoppable in the spaces they never thought to watch closely enough. The irony is that the smarter someone is, the harder this particular mistake hits when it finally surfaces, because a sharp person forgives almost anything faster than they forgive being outread by someone they'd already filed under harmless. That sting doesn't fade fast. It sits there, quietly, every time your name comes up again. You can watch it happen in real time if you pay attention. The confident ones get a little quieter around you after they've been caught misreading you once. Not humbled exactly, not yet, but recalibrating, running the numbers again on someone they assumed they'd already solved. Number 7. The mask you never chose but never needed to remove. Somewhere early on, without ever deciding to, You learned that showing your full hand made people uncomfortable. Maybe you noticed how a room shifted the one time you let your guard down and said exactly what you were thinking. Maybe you clocked how quickly people started treating you differently, more carefully, more guarded, the second they realized you saw more than you let on. So you adjusted, not by becoming less, but by becoming quieter about what you already were. That adjustment became the mask, and it fits so well that most people assume it's your actual face. Here's the thing about a mask that isn't hiding a lie, it's protecting a truth. You're not pretending to be dumb. You're simply declining to perform smart on command, which is a different thing entirely, even though the outside world reads them as the same. The mask doesn't add anything false. It just subtracts the parts that would make people defensive, calculating, or resentful before you've even had a chance to actually deal with them honestly. It's not deception, it's efficiency. Think about a lighthouse that only turns its beam on when a ship actually needs guiding, staying dark the rest of the time, not because the light doesn't work, but because flashing it constantly would blind more than it would help. That's the mask. It's not broken, it's not fake, it's calibrated, switched on exactly when it needs to be, and switched off the rest of the time so the people around you don't spend every interaction bracing for a spotlight they didn't ask for. You might wonder if you'll ever get to take it off completely, if there's a version of your life where people just see you clearly from the start, instead of needing a slow, grinding reveal every single time. Maybe. But chosen one, here's the piece worth sitting with. The mask has never once made you less than who you are. It's only ever protected the timing of when the world gets to find out. And every single person who's underestimated you because of it has taught you something valuable about exactly how little most people actually look past the surface before they decide they understand you completely. There will always be a small handful of people who see through the mask early, who catch the flicker of something sharper underneath and never mention it out loud. Those are the ones worth keeping close. Everyone else only ever gets exactly as much of you as the moment actually requires, and chosen one that has never once been a loss. Number 8. The meeting where your face broke their plan. There's always a meeting, isn't there? The specific room where something was supposed to go a certain way, where the plan depended, even a little, on you not noticing, not following, not being sharp enough to catch what was happening in real time. And there you sat, same loose expression, same unreadable calm, giving absolutely no indication that you understood exactly what was being maneuvered right in front of you. They talked around you like you were furniture with a pulse, and that was their first mistake. You caught it. Of course you caught it. The subtle redirection, the question that got skipped on purpose, the number that didn't quite add up to what they claimed it added up to. And instead of reacting in the moment, instead of giving them the tell they were braced for, you let your face stay exactly where it always stays. Still, easy, giving away nothing. That stillness wasn't confusion. It was you deciding, in real time, exactly when and how you were going to use what you'd just seen. Imagine a chess player who lets their opponent believe they haven't noticed the trap being set 2 moves ahead, simply because reacting early would tip their hand and lose the advantage of surprise. That's what your face does in rooms like that. It buys you room to maneuver, precisely because nobody thinks you're maneuvering at all. The plan depended on your blind spot. The plan discovered, eventually, that the blind spot belonged entirely to them. When the moment came to actually respond, whether in that meeting or somewhere down the line, it landed with a precision that made the whole plan collapse in on itself, not because you attacked it head-on, but because you simply pointed at the one detail they'd hoped nobody would notice. And chosen one, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was the sound of a plan realizing, too late, that the person they'd built it around had been watching the entire construction from the very first brick. Nobody in that room ever apologized directly. They rarely do. But the way the meetings changed after that day, the way certain names stopped getting invoked so carelessly around you, the way people started double-checking their numbers before presenting them in your presence, that was the apology. Quiet, structural, and far more honest than words would have been. You never once brought it up afterward, never referenced the moment their plan came apart in front of everyone, and that restraint did more damage to their confidence than gloating ever could have. People can recover from being called out. Recovering from being quietly, permanently outmaneuvered by someone they never saw coming takes a lot longer. Number 9. Why they can't read you anymore. There's a specific kind of panic that sets in when someone realizes their usual tools stopped working on you, and that panic has been building for a while now. They used to know how to get a reaction. A pointed comment, a little jab dressed as a joke, a slow, condescending explanation designed to see if you'd flinch, get flustered, or prove their assumption right. None of it worked the way it used to. Your face gave them nothing to work with. And a manipulator without a reaction to exploit is a manipulator standing empty-handed. Here's what's actually happening underneath your calm. You're not suppressing anything. You've simply stopped needing a visible response to process what's happening around you. Where they expect frustration, you deliver silence. Where they expect confusion, you deliver a question that turns their trap back on them. Where they expect you to finally show the crack they've been fishing for, you show nothing at all, because there was never a crack to find in the first place, just a face that was never designed to broadcast its interior for their convenience. Think of it like trying to read a book, written in a language you assumed you understood, only to discover halfway through that the letters mean something completely different than what you expected. That's what happened when they tried to keep reading you the old way. Every prediction failed. Every assumption came back wrong, and instead of updating their entire approach, most of them just got quieter around you, unsure now of anything they used to be so confident about. That confusion, chosen one, is the exact moment power shifts in a relationship without either side saying a single word about it out loud. The person who can be read is the person who can be managed. The person who can't be read walks through every room with a kind of freedom the readable ones will never fully understand. They can't manipulate what they can't predict, and they can't predict a face that was never performing for them to begin with. That's not coldness, that's protection, running exactly as designed. Watch what happens next time someone tries the old approach on you out of habit, forgetting for a moment that it stopped working a while ago. You'll see the exact instant they remember. It shows up as a small stumble in their own confidence, a half step back, the look of someone recalculating a move they thought was still safe to make. That recalculation is the closest thing to an apology some of them will ever manage. And chosen one, you've stopped needing more than that. The shift in how carefully they move around you now says everything the words never will. Number 10, the receipts they never saw coming. They assumed there was nothing to keep track of, no record, no pattern being built somewhere behind that easy expression. That assumption is about to cost them more than they realize. Because every dismissive comment, every slow explanation, every moment they underestimated you out loud got filed away, not out of bitterness, but out of habit. The same habit that made you notice everything else in the room, while everyone assumed you were noticing nothing at all. You remember more than they think you remember. The exact wording of the comment that was supposed to sting, the name of the person who laughed loudest, the specific meeting where they talked over you 3 separate times before finally asking your opinion as an afterthought. None of it lives on the surface. None of it shows on your face. But it's there, organized, dated, ready, the same way everything else you notice gets quietly filed instead of loudly announced. Imagine a detective's corkboard hidden behind a plain door, string connecting photographs and notes that nobody outside that room ever gets to see, built patiently over months, while the rest of the world assumes nothing is being tracked at all. That corkboard exists in your head, chosen one, and it's more detailed than anyone who ever underestimated you would be comfortable knowing about. You didn't build it for revenge. You built it because paying attention is simply what you do, and paying attention naturally produces receipts, whether you intended to collect them or not. The moment those receipts surface, and they will, whether through a single perfectly timed sentence or a slow accumulation of proof nobody can argue with, the people who assumed you weren't keeping score are going to have to reckon with exactly how much you actually saw. Not guessed, not assumed. Saw, clearly, the entire time, while wearing a face that told them nothing was being recorded at all. You've never once had to raise that corkboard as a threat, because that was never its purpose. It exists the same way a fire exit exists, quietly, in the background, hopefully never needed, but exactly there, the one time it actually matters. That's the difference between someone who watches to punish and someone who simply refuses to be caught off guard twice. And chosen one, the people who eventually learn this about you, tend to become far more careful, far more honest, and far more respectful. Not out of fear exactly, but out of the simple recognition that nothing said carelessly in front of you disappears the way it does with everyone else. Number 11. The moment everyone in the room went quiet. You know the moment. Everyone who's lived this story knows the moment, because it always arrives the same way. Not with noise, but with the sudden absence of it. A room that had been loud with assumptions about you, comfortable with its own certainty, goes still all at once. The second something you said or did makes it undeniably clear that every assumption in that room was built on sand. Nobody announces the shift. Nobody needs to. The silence does all the talking. That silence is heavier than any argument could ever be. It's the sound of people quickly rewinding every interaction they've ever had with you, checking it against this new information, and not liking what they find. It's the sound of someone realizing that the slow comment they made 6 months ago wasn't just wrong, it was embarrassingly wrong. The kind of wrong that gets replayed in their head at inconvenient moments for a long time afterward. Picture an orchestra mid-performance, every instrument playing exactly as rehearsed, when suddenly one single note lands so far outside what anyone expected that the entire ensemble stumbles, just for a beat, before finding its footing again. That stumble is what happens in a room the moment your real capability shows itself. Nobody planned for that note, nobody rehearsed a response to it. And for one suspended second, the whole performance depends entirely on how fast everyone else can recover from being wrong about you in real time. You didn't need to raise your voice to cause that silence. You didn't need a speech, a confrontation, or a single dramatic gesture. You just needed to be exactly as capable as you'd always been, visible for once, in a room that had spent so long assuming otherwise, and chosen one. That kind of silence doesn't fade quickly. It lingers. It changes how a room treats you from that point forward, whether they ever say a word about it out loud or not. Some of them will try to laugh it off afterward, force a joke to fill the space where their confidence used to sit, and you'll notice the joke lands flat every single time. A room can't unremember what it just found out about you, no matter how badly it wants the old, easier version back. Number 12. The one studying you in secret now. Something shifts once a room realizes it misjudged you, and it isn't always hostility. Sometimes it's curiosity dressed up as caution. The same people who used to talk over you, explain things twice, or laugh a beat too early, now watch you differently, more carefully, trying to figure out what else they missed. They're not doing it openly. They're doing it the way people study something they're a little afraid of, quietly, from the side, hoping you don't notice them noticing. You've probably clocked it already. The way certain conversations pause slightly longer before continuing when you're in the room. The way someone rephrases a comment they were about to make once they remember you're listening. The way people who used to speak carelessly around you now choose their words with a little more precision, unsure exactly how much you're tracking, and unwilling to find out the hard way twice. That caution is respect wearing a nervous disguise, and it didn't exist before that room went quiet. Imagine a group of hikers who spent an entire trip assuming the quiet member of their party didn't know the terrain. Right up until that person calmly guided everyone around a hazard nobody else even noticed. After that, nobody stops watching where that hiker's attention goes. Not because they're worried about being led astray, but because they've realized this particular person sees the trail better than anyone else in the group ever gave them credit for. That's what studying you in secret looks like now. It's not suspicion, it's recalibration, happening slowly, awkwardly, without anyone wanting to admit out loud that it's happening at all. And chosen one, let them study. Let them try to reverse engineer a mind they spent years dismissing. There's nothing to find that you're hiding maliciously, nothing sinister behind the calm, just a person who was always exactly this capable, watching them scramble now to update a picture they should have gotten right the very first time they met you. The strange part is how much more comfortable this new caution actually feels than the old careless dismissal ever did. Being underestimated came with a certain freedom, sure, but being watched carefully by people finally paying attention comes with something better. The quiet satisfaction of no longer needing to prove a single thing you already know is true. You've earned the right to let them keep guessing. There's no obligation to hand them the answer key just because they've finally started asking the right questions. Some things stay yours to reveal on your own timeline, exactly the way they always have. Number 13. Why your face is the best weapon they never detected. A weapon that looks harmless is the most dangerous kind there is, not because it's more powerful than an obvious one, but because nobody braces for it. Your face has been doing exactly that your entire life, disarming rooms before you ever say a word, lowering guards that would have gone straight up if you'd walked in looking as sharp as you actually are. People don't prepare defenses against something they've already decided is harmless, and that decision has handed you an advantage most people spend their entire careers trying to manufacture artificially. Think about how much energy other people spend trying to look sharp, trying to signal competence with posture and tone and carefully chosen vocabulary, performing intelligence like it's a costume that needs constant adjustment. You've never needed any of that. Your face does the opposite work entirely, and it does it so well that people walk straight past your actual capability without ever registering it was there. That's not an accident anymore, even if it started as one. That's leverage, quiet and completely legal, built into the one part of you people trust the least to be hiding anything. Picture a locked door, disguised as a blank wall, so seamlessly built into its surroundings that people walk past it 100 times without ever suspecting there's an entrance there at all. Only the ones who actually need to get through ever find it, and only because they knew exactly what they were looking for. Your face works the same way. Most people never look past it because there's nothing on the surface inviting them to, and the ones who eventually do look closer are the only ones who ever get to see what's actually behind it. This is why the whispers keep circling back to your face specifically, chosen one, and not to anything you've actually said or done. They can't quite explain the gap between what they expected and what they got, and the easiest place to locate the mystery is the one part of you that gave them nothing to go on in the first place. Let them keep staring at the wall. The door was never meant to be obvious to everyone. It was only ever meant to open for the moments that actually mattered. And that's exactly why the ones who eventually do find the door treat it so differently from everyone else. They stop performing around you almost immediately. They ask real questions instead of testing ones. Somewhere along the way, they figured out that the wall was never the point. The door was, and they'd finally earned the right to walk through it. Number 14, the day someone finally said it to your face. There's always one person who breaks the pattern, who stops whispering it behind your back and says the quiet part out loud, right to your face, expecting some kind of reaction that never comes. I completely misjudged you. Maybe it comes out clumsy, half-laughed, wrapped in an excuse about how busy things were, or how first impressions can be tricky. Maybe it comes out plain and a little embarrassed, no dressing at all. Either way, chosen one, that sentence is worth more than it sounds like in the moment, because it's the first time the private conversation about your face finally became a public one, said directly to the one person it was always about. You already knew, of course. You'd known since the very beginning that the story they were telling themselves didn't match reality. But there's still something different about hearing it confirmed out loud, watching someone actually sit with the discomfort of having gotten it wrong for so long and finally admitting it, instead of quietly adjusting their behavior and hoping you never noticed the shift. Most people never manage that sentence. Most people would rather keep pretending the correction never happened than say it plainly and give you the satisfaction of hearing it. Here's what you do with a moment like that, and it's simpler than they expect. You don't make them relive every dismissive comment. You don't demand a longer apology or a fuller accounting of every slow, condescending explanation they ever gave you. You just accept it, calmly, the same way you accept everything else, because dragging it out would mean giving their old mistake more weight than it deserves, now that it's already been corrected. That calm acceptance unsettles them almost as much as the original reveal did, because they braced for resentment and got grace instead. And grace from someone they wronged is a much harder thing to sit with than anger would have been. Imagine a scale that's been tipped one direction for years, finally leveling out, not with a crash, but with a slow, quiet correction that nobody quite notices happening until it's already balanced. That's what that sentence does. It doesn't erase the years of being underestimated. It just closes the account, finally, cleanly, on terms you never had to fight for. And chosen one, once that account closes with one person, it tends to close faster with everyone else who was watching. Word travels through rooms the same way whispers did, except this time, the whisper is finally telling the truth. You'll notice something else once that first honest sentence lands. The people who witnessed it happen start treating their own assumptions about others a little differently too, a little more carefully. Because watching one confident misjudgment collapse in real time has a way of making a whole room second-guess every other quick label it's ever handed out. You didn't set out to teach anyone that lesson. It just came bundled with the truth, finally catching up to where you'd been standing the entire time. And maybe that's the quiet justice in all of this, chosen one. You never had to correct every person individually, never had to walk into every room and set the record straight yourself. One honest sentence from one person who finally saw clearly did more work than 100 arguments ever could have, because truth, once it's finally spoken out loud, has a way of finishing the job on its own. Number 15, the reveal they can't take back. Every story like this arrives at the same place eventually, the point where pretending stops being an option, not because you forced it, not because you demanded an apology or a correction, but because the truth simply accumulated past the point where their old version of you could survive contact with it. One sentence, one solved problem, one moment of clarity too precise to explain away, and suddenly the entire narrative they'd built about your dumb face collapses under its own weight, permanently, with no version of events left that lets them unknow what they now know. This is the part that actually stings for them, more than the moment itself ever could. It's not just that they were wrong, It's that they were wrong loudly, publicly, in front of other people who now remember exactly how confidently they mocked you. There's no quiet way to walk that back. There's no explanation that makes the joke look clever in hindsight. All that's left is the awkward, uncomfortable math of realizing they spent real time underestimating someone who was never behind them for a single second. Imagine a curtain finally pulled back on a stage everyone assumed was empty, revealing not an empty set, but an entire performance that had been running the whole time, in full detail, just out of view. That's the reveal. It doesn't erase what came before it. It reframes it entirely, forcing everyone who watched the earlier scenes to realize they'd been laughing at exactly the wrong moment, for exactly the wrong reasons, the entire time. And chosen one, here's the part worth carrying forward from all of this. You never needed the reveal to know what was true. You knew it the whole time, quietly, patiently, without needing their approval to confirm it. The reveal was always for them, not for you. It was the moment their version of reality finally caught up to the one you'd been living in the entire time. The whispers about your face aren't going away. They're just changing shape, from mockery into something closer to respect. And there's no version of that shift they can undo now, no matter how badly some of them wish they could. So, let the whispers keep going, chosen one. Let them keep trying to describe something they still don't fully have the language for. You were never confused about who you were, not for a single day, not through a single dismissive comment or a single slow explanation you didn't need. You were simply waiting for the timing to be right, the same way you always do, calm and unbothered on the surface, while everything underneath stayed exactly as sharp as it's always been. If this hit exactly where it needed to, chosen one, that's not a coincidence. Drop 77 in the comments one more time so this message finds the next person who needs to hear it. And if you want to keep this mission moving, the super thanks button does exactly that. You were never the joke in that room. You were the only one who actually understood what was happening in it. Like this video, subscribe for the next one, and walk out of here exactly as sharp as you've always been, whether they ever noticed it or not. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Take care, and goodbye.